Hey everybody, Zion over here from Nintendo Life. So today, Nintendo, out of not nowhere, I guess we got a day's notice about it, Nintendo gave us a brand new Indie World showcase, basically a Nintendo Direct for indie games. And a lot of people, I'm just going to come out and say it, a lot of people have been going into these presentations hoping, praying, wishing to anything that Hollow Knight Silk Song will be in these presentations. And you know what? Obviously, lots of us want that. I think that's very clear. But Alex and John and I, we were all kind of watching the presentation, and it happened a little bit later in the day for them, so we didn't end up recording a big discussion altogether about it. But one thing we noticed is how the chat on YouTube was just constantly people over and over were just begging and screaming at the top of their lungs in chat for Silk Song, and that the games on screen that were being shown were trash. And you know what? I went back through and watched the entire presentation, and it was the complete opposite of that. I think this is one of the best indie presentations that we've gotten from Nintendo in a long time. Sure, some of these games we already knew were coming to Switch, but there was a lot of great quality in here and a good variety for everybody, I think. And you have a lot of people watching these things that I think are expecting to see like maybe big Nintendo titles or some big third-party title, but that's not what this is about. The indie scene is about flexing your creative muscles and trying to give us something that maybe the big third parties wouldn't be able to achieve or wouldn't try to do. To me, that's always how I viewed the indie scene. And I think this Indie World Direct, like I said, I think it was one of the best presentations. So what I kind of want to do in this video quick is just share with you some of the titles that really stood out to me, the ones that I was most excited about. Of course, I'm not going to talk about everything, because if you want, you can just go watch the presentation, and you very much should, because it was only 20 minutes long, and I think there's a lot of quality stuff in there, a lot of things to be excited about. So I just wanted to share with you the few things that I was really stoked to see today. And I'll go about these in the order that they were announced as well. So the first one that I got really stoked for was Sea of Stars. Now, this is a brand new RPG that's in the style of Chrono Trigger, which I actually just finished playing on my DS. And Chrono Trigger, it absolutely is. It's one of the best RPGs ever made. And we'll talk about that more soon in a future video, which I hope you'll all be very excited to hear and see. But basically, Sea of Stars is it's a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. It's not connected to Square or any of the characters in Chrono Trigger, but what it is connected to is the Messenger, actually, which I still have never played. I have it on my list, but that was developed by Sabotage, and Sea of Stars is actually in that same universe. And now, of course, I'm not ashamed to say this or anything. I backed Sea of Stars on Kickstarter when it was first announced. I did like a big package with a vinyl record and the physical game, and I'm very excited for it. But all because this game checks so many boxes for me. The soundtrack is incredible so far from what we've heard. I've listened to some of the songs that they've released over on Bandcamp over and over again. Part of the soundtrack is done by Rainbow Dragon Eyes, who actually plays in a metal band called Necrogoblicon, I believe it is. And then they also managed to get, probably going to butcher this, but they got Yasunori Mitsuda, who actually composed part of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack and then worked on Chrono Cross and Xenogears and some music in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as well. The main characters in the story so far remind me a lot of Golden Sun as well. It just gives me some of those vibes. So if you're a fan of any of the series that I just talked about here, please go check the trailer out for this game. I'm already going to be showing tons of it on screen anyways, but give this a look. Go listen to some of the music. Maybe I'll drop a link in the description down below to that, but go check out Sea of Stars. Don't sleep on it. It looks incredible. The next game that really caught my attention was Alicia, the Oblivion of Twin Goddesses. Now, this is apparently a co-op puzzle adventure game, and it looks like it shares some of the dungeon exploring elements of a Zelda game, but the interesting twist is that you can play the game single player, or you can play it co-op. Not online, just local co-op. But the weird thing that they're doing here is that apparently the two of the characters, the main characters, they play differently. And one of them is controlled with motion controls and like a Joy-Con or a Pro controller, basically, on the TV. Or maybe in tabletop mode. I'm not exactly sure if you'd be able to play that way or not. But then the other character is played in handheld mode, and you play this cooperatively. And so to me, they didn't come out and say this, but what I understand from that is that you'll play as one character on the TV, and then the person that that you're playing with, when they want to play, they'll go and pop the Switch out of the dock to then use the touch controls to play as their character. And then once you put the system back into the dock, then realistically, maybe then the other character is popped back up on the TV. I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to work that way, but that's what it sounded like to me. Also, the music, now that I remember as well, was very striking. It sounds like this game's going to have a really good score. So if anything that I mentioned sounds intriguing, go check out Alicia. I forgot to mention Sea of Stars comes out in the holiday of 2022, and Alicia is supposed to be set the spring of this year, or of 2022 as well. So both games for next year, nothing for December. The next one that felt very catered towards me stylistically was Afterlove EP. This is kind of like, it looks like a point and click style adventure game where you are a boy or a kid, or a guy, I guess, I suppose. I don't know their age, but you're a person who is struggling. You're trying to recover from the recent loss of your girlfriend. Actually, it doesn't even sound like you're trying to recover. It just sounds like you're just existing. Life is kind of at a stop, at a standstill for you. And it sounds like the game is going to kind of revolve all around this character kind of like opening up to their friends and trying to learn how to love life again. And I think it has a really important message in there, because I think, I shouldn't say lots of us, but there are a lot of people out there in life that unfortunately experience things like this. And I can't even imagine what it must be like to go through something like that. So, but the game has a really interesting and unique, like comic book manga almost art style. Everything's hand drawn, and like comic panels will pop up on screen, probably for cutscenes or just character interactions. And the main character is actually also in a band, so there's a rhythm portion to the game as well. And speaking of music, the game will feature an entire original soundtrack as well. So if you like what you hear in the trailer, you're actually going to get a lot more of that in the actual game. And Afterlove EP launches in the summer of 2022. So I mean, we'll have to wait 6 months for that one, but that's really not that far out. So this next game that I want to talk about, I actually have been excited for a long time. I think it's currently only on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, or at least it was until it was announced today. It's coming to Switch, and that's Chicory, A Colorful Tale. Now, I was originally supposed to interview some of the devs of this game at GDC 2020, but then, 2020 happened, and so GDC didn't happen in the same way that it was supposed to. But basically, this is a kind of an adventure game where you're, from what I read about it, you basically are this super fan of this artist, and apparently this artist goes missing, and you happen to acquire their paintbrush, which I'm assuming has like magical properties, and you can use that to basically give life back to this world that desperately needs it. And now I've kind of stayed away from information about this because I'm already sold on the game. I already really want to play it. And but one of the other cool things is that the composer for this game is actually Lena Raine. I hope I pronounced that right. And that's the composer of the Celeste soundtrack. And you can't go wrong with that. That is one of the soundtrack for Celeste is incredible. Go play Celeste. Go enjoy the soundtrack. Go check out Chicory as well. It looks really cool. I'm probably going to pick this up today. And then the last game, for me, the thing that absolutely made me like blow a fuse in the best way was Omori. They announced Omori is finally, like, officially we have a release date for Switch. If you're curious, like, whoa, what's Omori? Omori, from what I know, I'm kind of doing the same thing with Omori that I did with Chicory, is that I've seen enough of the game and I'm like, all right, I don't need to see any more. Just let me play the game. But Omori is a turn-based RPG, kind of like in the style of Mother, or not as close to Undertale, but the characters and things like that might follow a similar path. But this is a turn-based RPG where you play as this character. Kind of, it looks like they've stepped into a world that they're not from. Essentially, the main character is kind of like this black, like hand-drawn character, and then everything else is full of color and life. And so I'm not really sure, I don't really understand where the story goes, but apparently the story is going to follow it's going to feature some pretty heavy themes. So you want to be prepared for that. At least that's what the Nintendo Direct or indie presentation trailer told us. And but this game's been on PC for quite a while, and it's been praised fairly highly by fans. And so I'm really excited to give it a shot, and I'm glad that it's finally coming to Switch. I just finished Mother 3 a few months ago, and I finished Earthbound last year, and I loved the heck out of Undertale, and I feel like besides Oddity or Mother 4 or whatever you want to call it, I feel like this is like the next game that I need to complete. And so I'm so glad to see that it's finally coming to Switch, because I don't want to play it on my PC. So thank you for making this happen. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, the artist, basically from what I heard, I think they mentioned this in the trailer as well, but the artist Omori actually I used to see them at this anime convention that I used to go to in Chicago every year, and they would sell like t-shirts and posters and things, and I don't know if I ever bought anything from them in the past, but it's so cool to see them out here making like they've made a video game and they're bringing it to Switch. So congrats to you as well, and maybe someday we'll get to chat or something, I don't know, but I can't wait to play Omori. Thank you. But of course, there were tons of other games in this presentation as well. If I go through the email, like I'll see like Ali World was shown off, River City Girls 2 was in there, Figment 2 actually looks pretty cool as well. I've never played Figment 1, but there were a lot of really cool games that, if I really highly recommend that you go check this presentation out. And I apologize if it sounds like at the beginning of this video that I'm grilling everybody, because I'm not. I know that plenty of you out there are not the kind to, take what we get for granted, and you appreciate, the indie scene and things like that. But I think like seeing a comment, like imagine if you were the person who had been pouring their life and soul into Omori, and then or some other game that we've never seen before, and you're reading the chat to see what all the people are saying because you're so excited to share your game with the world, and you just see like Mario Kart 9 RIP like 3 times. Like, how is that going to make you feel? And I understand I'm probably preaching to the wrong crowd here. Like, I know a lot of our commenters are very respectful, and we appreciate you so much, So I apologize if I'm telling this to the wrong audience. Like, you probably don't need a lesson here. But if you have a moment, if you were really excited about any particular game in the indie world today, drop a comment down below about it. Go share something about it on Twitter. Go just be humble and be excited about something that you saw today, because we all just love video games, right? And so what if they aren't always all the AAA masterpieces that we want? Like the indie scene is pretty great too. And I think they deserve the attention that Nintendo's given them today. Now, of course, like I said, please mention in the comments down below if you enjoyed any certain game. Let me know if you got excited about one of the games I talked about, or talk about something else that I didn't mention today. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, then why don't you go tell that subscribe button that it's okay if it wants to be an indie game, because it still looks pretty cool. And then ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we put up a new video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.
What?